pretty hard, but not as hard as we will be smacked by ISIS attackers. CIA saying tonight more ISIS attacks likely in the pipeline. I am joined by Carly Fiorina, who joined me on Friday in the midst of the Parisian attacks. Carly, are you still in Iowa? Are you back in South Carolina? Where do I find you today?
I am in New Hampshire today, Hugh.
Okay, there's always one of three places you're going to be, Iowa, New Hampshire, or South Carolina. Carly Fiorina, the president, made a statement today in Turkey that I want to play in its full context so that people can comment on it. It's really perhaps the most remarkable thing I've ever heard an American president say. Cut number 13.
What I'm not interested in doing is posing or pursuing some notion of American leadership or America winning or whatever other slogans they come up with that has no relationship to what is actually going to work to protect the American people and to protect people in the region who are getting killed and to protect our allies and people like France.
And Carly, just for brevity's purposes, the short version of that is this, cut number 14.
What I'm not interested in doing is posing or pursuing some notion of American leadership or America winning.
What do you make of that?
It enrages me, Hugh. I have been angry since all of this started. It enrages me. This president, well, let me just contrast it. What did President Hollande of France say? What he said was, we will wage a war that is pitiless. That is the appropriate response. That doesn't necessarily mean 10,000 boots on the ground, but it means acknowledging that ISIS is at war with us and therefore we must be at war with them. It requires us to name the enemy, Islamic terrorism. It requires us to acknowledge the reality that they are not contained, that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's declaration of victory in Iraq in 2011 and their precipitous withdrawal against all advice from every general and for political expediency and nothing more has given ISIS vast swaths of territory, weaponry, and they are building their caliphate and building, as the former deputy head of the CIA, Mike Morell, a man I worked with for several years, said on television yesterday, they are building an ability to strike in Europe and in the U.S. President Obama is delusional, I would imagine, based on his comments today.
Carly Fiorina, the president also attacked Republicans, and these include Jeb Bush, and perhaps you, I'm not sure what your policy is articulated, who said, look, I'm paraphrasing Governor Bush, we can start with the Christian Syrian refugees and bring them here. He announced that as un-American. Jeb Bush wasn't saying just Christian. He was saying you can start with Christians because of the security risk. The president wants to politicize everything.
Exactly right. And by the way, what I have said from the beginning with the Syrian refugee crisis is we cannot let people into this country unless we know who they are and what their intentions are. And we know for a fact that we do not have a process in place to appropriately vet these people. And for the administration to stand up and say, well, never mind, we're going to let them in anyway, even though we can't tell you who they are, is dereliction of duty.
Well, when Mrs. Clinton was asked at the first Democratic debate who her enemies were, the former Secretary of State said Republicans. The president today attacked Republicans. It's really kind of mind-boggling, Carly Fiorina.
Well, it is mind-boggling, and it is a reminder that you cannot lead from behind. You cannot lead if all you care about is politics. The only way to lead is to be clear-eyed about what you face. Let us be, as I said in the speech on Saturday, let us be clear-eyed. No, Mrs. Clinton, no, Mr. President, climate change is not our gravest national security threat. Our gravest national security threat in the near term is ISIS and other radical Islamic terrorists. Our gravest security threat in the medium term is Iran, now joined by Russia. And in both of these near and medium-term threats, this administration, Mrs. Clinton, President Obama have rolled over and over and over. And the world is a very dangerous place as a result.
I want to play for you Mrs. Clinton's most memorable line from the debate on Saturday night, which only 8 million Americans watched. Interesting. Your first undercard debate drew almost as much as her primetime debate did, Carly Fiorina. Here is Hillary Clinton on cut number 12.
Obviously, I believe that on a college campus there should be.
Would you suggest that kind of activism take place at other universities across the country?
Well, John, I come from the 60s, a long time ago. There was a lot of activism on campus, civil rights activism, anti-war activism, women's rights activism. And I do appreciate the way young people are standing up and speaking out.
So she comes from the 60s, a long time ago. Today, Huma Abedin email from January of 2013 was released, in which she says, very important to do that, briefing to another age, she's often confused. What do you make of these stories of Mrs. Clinton being confused and her reference to being from a long time ago?
Well, I don't really know, Hugh. What I know is she cannot be our commander-in-chief. She has been wrong on so many issues. And let me go all the way back and link her amazing question about Benghazi to what we saw in Paris 2 days ago. And it's not much of a reach. She asks, what difference does it make when a purposeful terrorist attack murders 4 Americans in our embassy in Benghazi? The difference is this, Mrs. Clinton. When you do not stand up and answer a purposeful terrorist attack with a purposeful and powerful response, but instead you lie about it and call it a videotape, you send a message to every enemy we have that it is open season on Americans. And what this administration has done is refused to call terrorism by its name, to call evil by its name, and to do what is necessary to lead our allies to defeat this evil. I am prepared to be a commander-in-chief who not only is clear-eyed about the realities we seek, but knowing the Europeans as I do, having spent decades in and around Europe, knowing our Middle Eastern allies as I do, having spent a lot of time in that area, we must lead. And Obama and Clinton do not understand that, and some others running for president are not qualified to do so.
Carly Fiorina, stick with me for one more quick segment, if you will. I'll be right back, America, from New Hampshire with Carly Fiorina on this, the Monday after the terror in Paris. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I continue to bring you breaking news from across Europe as the manhunt is still underway for the individual who is believed to be the mastermind behind the massacre on Friday. Meanwhile, President Obama has denounced Republicans today for blocking refugees. The Belgian who is being pursued's name is Abdelmalek Abouad, but more importantly, President Hollande says France is at war. Carly Fiorina is my guest. I want to go back to the Saturday night debate. This is Mrs. Clinton, Ms. Fiorina, talking on Saturday night, cut number 10.
The president has called this attack an act of war.
Yes.
A couple of days ago, you were asked if you would declare war on ISIS, and you said no. What would you say now?
Well, we have an authorization to use military force against terrorists. We passed it after 9/11.
And you think that covers all of this?
It certainly does cover it. I would like to see it updated.
If you were in the Senate, would you be okay with the commander-in-chief doing that without coming back to you?
No, it would have to go through the Congress. And I know the White House has actually been working with members of Congress. Maybe now we can get it moving again so that we can upgrade it so that it does include all the tools and everything in our arsenal that we can use to try to work with our allies and our friends, come up with better intelligence. You know, it is difficult finding intelligence that is actionable.
Stop for a moment. Carly Fiorina, I want to give you enough time. She's a little confused here, like Huma Abedin said, because she was for the AUMF before she was against it in the same answer.
Yes, and by the way, a commander-in-chief has the tools at his or her disposal to do what is necessary in this case. Everyone knows that. President Obama has always attempted to use Congress as an excuse in multiple theaters, and Mrs. Clinton is falling into the same trap. President Hollande said exactly the right thing. We are at war. And of course, what Mrs. Clinton clearly does not understand, ISIS is at war with us. That is how they describe it. And so therefore, we must be prepared to wage this war and win. It is why I have said to you, Hugh, on so many occasions when you've had me on your show, each of which I deeply appreciate, we must gather our allies, which now will include the French, the Germans, and the British as well. We must lead, however. We can provide support, we can provide weapons, we can provide intelligence, we can provide resolve, but if we do not lead, it will not get done.
Carly Fiorina, I appreciate your coming back on such short notice from Friday and Monday. Good luck in your New Hampshire campaigning. I appreciate it very much. CarlyForAmerica.com is her super PAC America, CarlyForAmerica.com. She can't coordinate with it, but I can tell you about it. CarlyForAmerica.com.